Hello, you roguish patrons. Welcome to the first episode of Modern Rogue Commentary, where we'll watch the episode and make comments and maybe dive a little bit into how the sausage is made. I'm John Rail, and for this episode, Pepper's Ghost, I was the editing supervisor and director. So let's just start this.
This episode brought to you by Raycon. Go to buyraycon.com/rogue and get 15% off your first order. Check them out. Huh?
And now, let the transformation begin.
This is what Brian calls putting a bunny on the table. Basically, not just in YouTube, but in any narrative world, you kind of want to give the audience something to, you kind of want to give the audience a little promise that, hey, there's some cool stuff to come, which is why a lot of, tropey TV writing begins shows with earlier that week, like here's something a little exciting earlier that day. It's pretty much how every Dick Van Dyke show ever started. But continuing.
Yeah!
So yeah, I'm like...
Oh. For the record, our title cards usually include a little bit of a viewer warning. And so I thought I would just warn people that, hey, ghosts are still not real. And if you think you're seeing a ghost, you are either being fooled by a charlatan or you should seek medical help of some kind because, something is going on that is not paranormal.
So yeah, I'm like completely allergic to sugar.
What?
Yeah, I don't know.
How's that?
It might be because I got dumped in a vat of sugar as a kid, and they say maybe it's like the opposite of like immersion therapy is submersion therapy, and it wasn't therapy, it was a detriment.
That is so good, because I had no clue where he was going with the vat of sugar thing, but he totally paid it off with a little juxtaposition of a sort of there is a great joke where you create something logically consistent yet figuratively contradictory, and Bryce did that so well in this moment, and I just love it.
Submersion therapy, and it wasn't therapy, it was a detriment.
And it wasn't therapy, it was a detriment. It was like, yeah, very clever joke.
Immersion therapy, and it wasn't therapy, it was a detriment. So.
Oh gosh, I guess you should start drinking the diet cheer wine now.
Oh yeah, there's no one else to drink it, huh?
Oh, I know.
Annalisa's got a pretty good neutral mask. Like, she's not a bad actor.
The other day.
Yeah.
Like, I expect it from Bryce, because, Bryce has been in front of the camera for so many years, but Annalisa's got it going on pretty good.
I heard some rustling, but there was also some whispering.
Barbecue tacos. Barbecue tacos. I don't know, just...
Like, I did not really have to direct them at all for this.
Like
They just kind of went off on their own. It was great.
I mean, he did die recently.
Yeah, man, that was a weird funeral.
I didn't like the Spider-Man dress code.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little uncouth.
Who's ready to make an episode?
Well...
Where's Jason?
Brian, oh God. Okay, fine, he's dead, right?
He's dead all the time.
Little self-criticism here. I did not edit this episode, but I am the editing supervisor, which basically means in this particular case, Heather Gardner edited it, and she hands it off to me, at which point I do the color correction, I tweak the sound, maybe I add a little more music. Like, I finish it. But in this particular case, I definitely did the color correction. And just this one shot, Brian ends up a little bit more orange than I wanted him to. So, my bad.
It's fine. No excuse for him to not be here.
Remember we went to the funeral?
Yes, and he always comes back from the dead. Sometimes he's dead, sometimes he's not dead. Sometimes I'm the one who kills him, sometimes he kills me.
Well, we've been hearing some kind of weird noises from out in the soundstage.
All right, so he's haunting the soundstage. Yeah, let's go.
He can go.
Yeah, so anyway.
So no sugar. No
Yeah.
sugar.
For example, one of the things I added as an editing supervisor was the music track here, because at first there was no music track. And I just thought it needed something, some of our generic chill hop, which we have a lot of generic chill hop. So I added that. And of course here you can see we got some wind and subsonic bass going on because I have like an infinite amount of sound effects from a friend who shall remain nameless who hooked me up with the entire collection from Digital Jungle.
I contacted Jason Murphy.
Oh, I love the way the light does that. Of course, that was all Brian. Brian's like, I want light behind me. I want dramatic light behind me.
Jason, I see you.
Leave me, Brian.
Jason.
That shot looks so good. That shot required very little in the way of color correction. In fact, let's take a look at what it originally looked like. And turning it off. Well, I mean, the color correction definitely helped, but I was just still impressed by how much he really did pop in the Pepper's Ghost Illusion here. Later on, I kind of have to tweak it a bit, but we'll go into that.
No. We have a mono shoot.
I cannot work
It was
today.
on the schedule. Is that a PlayStation controller?
No, pay no attention.
Now, this is one thing I just have to mildly bitch and moan about the way Premiere does audio. If you add an audio effect that actually changes the gain of the sound of the audio clip, you will not see that change in gain. So like when you add, in this case, we did a analog delay effect, it cuts out like a good 5 to 10 decibels worth of sound. Like you can see here, it is supposed to be, peaking, but when I play it, if you look over here,
No, it definitely.
no, it's
No attention.
it's still far away from peaking. So I actually had to up the gain by another few decibels here. What are we at? Yeah, I had to increase the gain by 5 decibels, even though the waveform shows it peaking, because that is not something Premiere is smart enough to do. It also doesn't adjust the waveform if you actually adjust the volume. So like if I took the volume way down here, it's not changing the waveform at all, and it'll just,
No, it.
yeah, like you can't hear him saying anything now. And yet the waveform still looks like it's maxed out. I hate that. Of course, maybe I should learn Audition. Of course, maybe we should, get episodes done in time so I can hand them off to our audio person. But a lot of times we don't have that luxury, so we got to tweak the audio ourselves. Anyway,
Pay no attention.
No, it definitely looks like a PlayStation controller.
It is not a PlayStation.
What are you doing? Wait,
a lot of swears in this episode.
you're doing the Pepper's Ghost thing.
No, I'm not.
You're doing the
Come
Pepper's Ghost.
on.
You're right here.
I was on
You're
a
right.
I got no problem with swears. I'm just saying.
I was on a street.
Whenever we go narrative, we love to swear.
We'll respawn in a second for dance.
Oh, well, you were playing as Dawson. That was your problem. Holy cow, man. Pepper's Ghost has to be like an all.
See, now the funny thing about this this soft wipe here, the ye old Star Wars wipe or whatever, is this moment right here going into the sit down conversation. The way Brian had envisioned this was that all of this would be the opener, and then we would get the title card, and then they would sit down and talk. And and originally that is how Heather Gardner cut it, because Brian actually said it out loud while we were rolling, and so that's how she cut it. And I'm like, yeah, dude, we can't have nearly 4 minutes before we get to the actual title card. So we got to, quote unquote, put the bunny on the table, which I didn't even do during the first rough cut, I just sent it to Brian, going straight from the ad right to the title card, because I was kind of banking on not putting the bunny on the table. I was banking on the old rule of thumb that an audience would rather be confused for 10 minutes than bored for 10 seconds, which is totally true. But, we don't have our audience necessarily stuck in a movie theater trying to deal with this. They'll just click over if they don't have any promise of what's coming. So we ended up adding this. Anyway, continuing.
Holy cow, man. Pepper's Ghost has to be like an all-star, world-class, top 10 illusion of all time.
That probably terrified people back in the late 19th century, right?
Continues to terrify people today.
I thought Tupac was really there at Coachella.
I didn't know that they actually used Pepper's Ghost.
I was so disappointed to find that out.
Fancy, like hologram technology.
I mean, granted, it didn't look great anyway, but I was excusing the terrible CGI with the fact that, if you want a hologram to exist, it can't look, like a world's first kind of actual hologram can't look that great anyway. So I was giving them a lot of excuses for how crap the CGI looked. But now that I find out it was literally just Pepper's Ghost, I'm very annoyed by the whole Tupac thing. Continuing.
Used Pepper's Ghost. I thought it was some fancy
thought it was
hologram
fancy?
technology.
No.
I thought, man, it's
Pepper's
like Star
Ghost.
Wars, Princess Leia appearing.
Nope. Same thing with like a Haunted Mansion, that awesome moment when all the ghosts are dancing or whatever. In fact, that's a giant 45-degree angle piece of glass.
And you're often like on top of them, like where they
This is a cool graphic that Heather made that I made her redo like 3 or 4 times because I was like, no, I want a better light representation. I want better chairs. I want this, that, and the other, which is, my prerogative. But she found some cool artwork by Vince Dorsey here. You see it credited. And at first, my first step through this whole process was we got to get his permission. If we're going to use his artwork, we need to at least have his permission. So I reached out to him. And if I was not able to get a hold of him straight up, I would have just had her replace these dancing, figures with actual Brian and Jason figures, which would have also been fun. It would have also been cute. But fortunately, I was able to get a hold of Vince Dorsey, and he was like, sure, man, go for it. Sounds good. So very nice guy. So shout out to Vince Dorsey.
they're underneath. And so it's all just angles and lighting, really. There's nothing
Oh, there was one little battle that, or I guess would have been a battle because Heather was willing to take this to the mat. Brian was under the assumption that these figures, especially for the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland, he was under the impression that these figures were upside down, and so they got reflected right side up. And in any case, Heather was like, "No, dude, I work there. I have pictures of behind the scenes." So she knew they were right side up. But Brian heard that from one of his magician friends who was apparently in the wrong.
Piece of glass.
And you're often like on top of them, like where they're underneath. And so it's all just angles and lighting, really. There's nothing fancy about it.
Back in the sideshow days, what they would do is they had an illusion that was called Girl Gorilla. And they would say like, oh, here's a girl, but she might become a gorilla. Say the words, girl, gorilla, girl, gorilla, girl, gorilla. And then all they would do is they'd flicker the lights and all of a sudden it was a gorilla. And then the big surprise was the gorilla would run out and terrorize the audience.
Oh, and we should talk about the history. Just real quick, John Henry Pepper popularized.
This was all Miss Gardner. She, like all of us as editors of the Modern Row, we love, doing little deep dives for the title cards. So that's why she gets along with us.
This in like 1862. So he was doing like early versions of the spook shows and stuff like that. And seeing it back then, of course, that was right in the heart of the spiritualist movement, right?
Oh my gosh, I assume it looked like a real ghost to people, right?
Right.
I mean, it looks good even when we took 4 of them, put them together to create what we called a holographic iPhone. Wow, right?
That looks way better than I
Right?
anticipated.
It looks amazingly creepy in real life.
I love going to haunted attractions like various spook houses around the area, and they often use that, of course, like in the Haunted Mansion. You'll walk up to the house and in the window, you'll see a disembodied head floating or
But
something like that.
translucent, that's
Exactly.
the thing, that's the secret. Because it's not really a mirror, for anyone unfamiliar, all you need is a 45-degree piece of glass, right? Where one side is well lit and the other side is dark or darker. And it ends up looking like, I don't know, a ghost, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the
It's also how teleprompters work.
magician to author? Oh, magician to author, magician to author, magician to author. For our setup, we happen to have a big plexiglass something or other here. You could
Strange transition. I didn't really know how to go from, because we had already went once from narrative to them sitting down and actually discussing, which is usually where we would end the episode. You know, we do some big bombastic thing at the beginning and then have a discussion, or have the discussion and then do the big bombastic thing. But here was a whole nother transition into a demonstration, which was fun, but I was like, how am I gonna get from point A to point B? Yeah, I'll just go along with the vibe, the Wayne's World woo-doo-doo kind of vibe they're giving here. And
For our setup, we happen to have a big plexiglass something or other here. You could do it with real glass. You could do it with a sheet of, I don't know, basically saran wrap.
And this is something you can get at the hardware store.
Yeah, and it cost us all, I don't know, $100 or whatever. But it's set at a 45-degree angle. You and I are almost...
a little behind the scenes, we had originally tried to get an actual sheet of glass, or like plate glass, or like literally kind of exactly what we already had in our podcast studio just laying there. Corey went out to get some, and he came up very empty-handed because, it's the pandemic and nobody has this stuff available anymore. Every place was just sold out, and people were waiting to buy more because, it's the pandemic.
directly behind it, but with the overhead lights, everybody can see both of us. It's only when the lights go off. In fact, let's go ahead and turn off the lights.
Annalisa, turn off the lights.
Hopefully, to the camera, it looks like some kind of weird blended
Amalgam.
illusion of the two of us.
Kind of.
But we both have lights on us. The camera's not seeing either of us. It's either seeing me through the plexiglass or your reflection. So watch what happens when this light gets totally shut off.
See, now here is where I had to actually dive in and do some rotoscoping, because my biggest regret about this whole shoot, which by the way, I was acting director and cinematographer at the same time, so it's a little tough to see the trees when your job is to pay attention to the forest. You know what I mean? So my biggest regret is not using our Voigtlander lens, which is super fast and super bright and super sharp. It's a fantastic lens. Instead, I was a little eager to use a 30-year-old Pentax manual lens, which is a gorgeous little lens, but wasn't quite bright enough for this. And so I had to boost the ISO, and so it got a little grainy and just, yeah. So anyway, I had to actually dive in here and do some rotoscoping, because otherwise, yeah, it just, like, even with just the color correction, it was not nearly enough. It was just, yeah. So I had to go in here and rotoscope Jason every time the light changed. But, at least I had the luxury to spend, a few hours doing rotoscoping, or maybe it took an entire day, as opposed to dragging, 5 or 6 people back out to the studio, which would be impossible at this point because Jason is quarantining, or in quarantine with his wife. So that reshooting was not an option. So I just had to rotoscope like so many editors before me.
Just me.
Right? And now, let the transformation begin.
Yeah!
Can you imagine it being like 1899, you're at a sideshow and you see a girl transform into a gorilla right in front of your freaking eyes like that?
Torches and pitchforks, man. Some sorcerer is gonna die that night.
Transform back.
Yeah, it kind of works.
You think we could scare your kids like this?
Could certainly try. And I can transform back.
For the record, everybody, there's been quite a few comments always asking, every time I use this track, which for the record, this was not my choice, this was Heather's choice, but every time we use this track, somebody always asks about it because they love it. And why wouldn't they? It's made by our boy Anthony Shea. And it is a really good track. I kind of abused the hell out of it, if I'm being honest, especially back in my skeptic.com days. It was our main opening theme for a while.
I'm back again.
Yeah, I'm sure they love.
I'm sure everybody loves just opening and
the barn
closing
doors
the,
over
no,
and
okay, look. Pepper's Ghost, man. Dude,
Yeah, that's another thing. I think next time, if there is a next time that we do a Pepper's Ghost style transition, I'm going to insist on maybe even portable battery-powered LEDs. Not that the battery power means anything, but usually with battery power, when you turn the level all the way down, it actually shuts off. Not the case with our LED panels. If you turn it all the way down, it's still like 30% bright. So we had to do the barn doors thing. So it'd be nice if we could have just adjusted a knob on each one as opposed to having the guys open and close it with their hands.
That's awesome.
the illusion that has survived 200 years and counting. How amazing is that?
Check it
Yeah,
out.
we didn't really have an ending for that episode. Brian was like, how amazing is that? And Jason's like, yeah, really cool. And cool. Well, do we got everything? Did we get everything we needed? And I was like, it seems like it. We got every piece to the story, I think, don't we? And no, we didn't. We didn't really have an ending. Which, I mean, we demonstrated it. We talked about it. We demonstrated it. It has all the elements. It just didn't have what I would perceive as an official button.
My everyday E25s, just like Brian Brushwood, wearing them all the time. Not sleeping in them though, like he does, because that's weird. But if you want to be like Brian and you want to sleep in these, you totally can, because they are super comfortable. They have a noise isolating fit, and they've got 6 hours of power, extra bass, and they come in a variety of colors and patterns. You can wear them for half the price of other premium earbuds. They're so affordable, so comfortable, and so slick. You can feel just like Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, there was, despite this graphic here, there have been a couple people over the last few videos wondering if we're just still working with Brian even though he has COVID. And I'm like, how do you think film works? How do you think, do you think we're shooting everything live to tape, like between bouts of Brian vomiting and wheezing, we're like propping him up and bringing him onto a set with several other people so that we can shoot the modern Rogue? I don't know. But anyway, no, the second Brian got his positive diagnosis, we all individually quarantined for a full 10 to 14 days. So in fact, that's not even going to be up for me until after tomorrow. So I am still isolated from everyone.
Go to buyraycon.com/rogue. Get 15% off your first order.
Ooh, and our sexy doghouse logo. I actually had to track down quite a few elements from this whole thing because Doghouse Systems finally gave us a vanity that did not have a weird letter in between their address and Rogue. So they finally gave us that, but that meant I had to go through and update their end splash page here.
Oh, that's legit!
I'm dumb. My name is Jason Murphy.
You totally blew it.
I just hit buttons randomly. I play Blanca.
Well, that is what I did when I played Blanca.
But it was Dawson, I'll have you know.
All right, so yeah, that's our first Modern Rogue commentary, sort of behind the scenes editing review. We hope you enjoyed. Have a good one. Thank you for watching. Bye.